Ahead on Coast Guard, the fishing trawler Gambler is taking on water. The crew of 3 frantically tries to save the boat and their lives. The Coast Guard searches for a boy pulled out to sea by a strong riptide. 21 stowaways terrify the crew of a freighter. The Coast Guard's own elite law enforcement team comes to the rescue. These stories and more on this episode of Coast Guard. Hyannis, Massachusetts. At one time, it was a thriving fishing community on the northeast coast. But commercial fishermen have seen better days here, as just about everywhere.
We're all businessmen. You all have big mortgages to pay and families to take care of. I think we're a younger crowd than what you saw a few years back.
We like to stay on what we call on the toe, because every time you tie the boat up, you seem to lose a day.
There's been so many boats that sank. There's been no new boats built, really, in several years. Guys are just going to keep working, putting less into the boats. More people are going to get killed. Boats are going to sink.
Strict regulations brought on by overfishing make it tough to make a living. Even tougher to invest in the boat that not only puts food on your table, but keeps you alive as you do it.
We got the word it was a fishing vessel called the Gambler, sinking about 5 miles off the coast of Scituate. So we launched, and we were there probably within 30 minutes. We got there on scene, and the boat was already pretty well awash. There was maybe a foot, 6 inches of freeboard on the stern. We immediately hoisted a pump down and let the crew get to work on that. By virtue of the fact that the vessel was so close to Station Scituate, we had them come out.
Once we got there, I was trying to talk to the pilot to assess how bad it was, to see if the water was washing over the decks or not. And because if it's washing over the decks, there's absolutely no way that you can stop the flooding. So I told him I was going to take one of the crew members off the Gambler, to talk to him to see the extent of damage, what exactly happened, and where the water was in the engine room. And so I pulled up the first time to take the first crewman off, and because of the seas, that it looks like we're riding right up over the boat, but there's a peak of a wave right underneath us holding it there, so we got kind of, I was kind of lucky on those. I had my crew up on the bow to help grab them when they jumped over.
I was worried about falling over with all the waves. Being up on the bow, there's really not much to grab onto.
They had no idea where the flooding was coming in. They don't know what happened. What they assumed was one of their planks in the bow popped out, and the water was just pouring in. And they said, well, they want to keep trying to pump it. And I told the guy, unless you have the hole plugged, trying to pump out this boat would be like trying to pump the Atlantic Ocean. It'd be impossible. And I watched the boat. It took a real slow roll, just barely moving. And we were smashing all over the place. And I told him, that's it. It's too far gone. You're not going to be able to save it. I have to take you off. And at first they were objecting, saying we weren't giving them the chance to try to save the boat. They started to agree when they looked at the situation around them. There was water washing over the decks. Everything was sliding around. And they were not making any headway. So when we pulled up the second time, again, my crew was up to the bow to help them over. As soon as we got up there, they were more than happy to jump onto the bow of the boat. A couple minutes right after I took them off that the thing decided to sink. Crew stood there. They were on the stern of our boat watching, and they watched their whole life roll over and sink to the bottom of the ocean.
It was a big loss for me because that's how I made my living. I worked for years to pay for that thing, and we're just getting out so the payment it was all paid for, and we were starting to make some money with it. The boat was so old that you couldn't get insurance on it. Lloyd's of London wouldn't even touch it, so it was a total loss, the whole $80,000. You know, it was a gamble. The fishing business is a gamble.
They say that the sea's a jealous mistress, and the sea just calmly swallowed this boat up.